everyone.
Thank you. And so I'll just introduce everybody to our speaker today, Frank DiMeglio of Northwestern Mutual, and he is going to speak on sales tips and techniques as part of the Business Growth Series sponsored by BB&T. So thank you so much, Frank, for being here. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Happy to be here. So want me to jump on in, Amanda? All right.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and jump on in?
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'm honored that you all showed up this morning. It's nice to be here. I've been a member of the Chamber for just about a year now. And just as a little personal and professional background, so I started my career with Northwestern Mutual while I was in college as a college financial representative in 2007. And then upon graduation in 2008, joined the firm as a full-time advisor. 3 months later, the recession started. And I was so grateful to have found a firm to hang my hat with that was strong and resilient. But I will tell you, looking back on it, it was one of the best things that could have happened to me was getting into a career while the industry wasn't easy. About 5 years into my career as an advisor, I had the good fortune of being asked to step into a leadership role to start mentoring some of our newest advisors. So through that, I've kind of worn these two hats over the course of my career as still today a financial advisor, but also today I'm the managing director of our firm here in Bucks County. So we are right on York Road. If you know the Outback Steakhouse, it's right next to our building. And if I leave late enough at night, the smell of steak and blooming onions could almost like draw you right into that place. That's how strong it could be. But I actually still live in New Jersey. So I spent the first 11 plus years of my career in the Princeton, New Jersey office. And when I had the opportunity to come out to Bucks County to take over the office, it made sense for my family and I at that time to stay in New Jersey. We have 3 daughters. We have a 7, a 5, and a 2-year-old. So just a little less transition on them. But I'm honored to be with the group today. And while my career has been really exciting, some of the things that have been most exciting for me are my learnings throughout the 13-year journey so far, particularly around how to help develop advisors, how to recruit and attract advisors, and how to work with clients. And I do think there's certainly a level of salesmanship in there and consultative mentorship and coaching, but we're educators at heart, right? Anybody that's on this call here that has clients or prospective clients, we're teaching. So very rarely do I feel like I'm in a sales role. While I'm compensated based on sales. So I'm certainly in sales. But I feel that the best salesmen and saleswomen are those that teach, understand what's important to people. So I have the great pleasure of speaking to Northwestern Mutual and to other financial firms all around the country. Pre-pandemic, get on a flight and spend time in other parts of the country. But over the last year, it's all been virtual. And what I wanted to do today was I wanted to share with you 5 implementable ideas that I believe would be helpful for you in your practice, in your career, at home, with friends, etc. All things that are, I believe, to be transferable in your different worlds. So outside of that, I just thought I'd share by introduction the 2 things that I get really excited about professionally. One is to work with clients. My team and I primarily work with physicians, men and women in sales, business owners, and young families. I have about 30 people here in my firm. I have advisors anywhere from a few months in to 30 years in the business. So I don't believe there's a prospect or prospective client we can't help. We have 8 CFPs in our firm. So we have some really talented, highly educated people. And then in my managing director role, my job there, as I see it, is to find talented people who could be advisors, to develop our existing advisors here, and to really be the keeper of the culture. There's all these kind of microcosms of worlds in our office. We have advisors, we have team members, we have staff, we have college interns. So it's so much fun to kind of bring all those worlds together. So what I'll do next, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to spend about 20 to 25 minutes on a formal presentation, and then I'd love to go to Q&A and see how I can be helpful. So I'm going to share my screen. Amanda, may I share the screen there?
Is it working for you now, Frank?
Let's see. Yes, perfect. So just to confirm, you can see the screen that says, what's the fuel to your fire, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm going to give you a little background on this theme. A couple years ago, my brother and I were in upstate New York, and we're sitting at a campfire, and I'm looking at this fire, and it just hits me. I said, this fire is our business. And my brother is a successful commercial real estate broker. He said, what do you mean it's our business, Frank? Like, you're getting a little, you're in the clouds on me right now. How could this fire be transferable to our business? And I said, well, let's think about it. A fire has a couple different parts to it. You have to decide why you're making the fire, right? Is it for shelter? Is it for warmth? Is it for making s'mores, right? Why did you decide to make it? Second is, then you have to go into preparation mode, right? Now we got to find the wood, find the kindling, find a fire starter. Third is execution. That's literally getting the match and getting the fire going. And for any of you that have made a fire in the past, it is not what it looks like on TV, right? Where they hit two rocks together and all of a sudden you have a nice, beautiful flame, right? Like, I've gone through boxes of matches to try to get a fire going. And I always like to share a quick little story. This fire we made, I was outside making the fire, and my brother went inside. And my neighbor came out with a little tank of lighter fluid. He said, here, use this. I promise I'll never tell him. And I said, no, Rock, I'm not going to use it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to figure out a way to make it. But my point on this is the execution of what's most important to us sometimes in our day-to-day work is not always easy. It's really tough. And I find what keeps us going to get that fire lit is our vision, right? It's helping us connect to the greater purpose. Once that fire is going, we've got a couple options, right? One is kick back, kick up your feet and enjoy the fire. But if you don't add new, fresh wood to the fire, it will die out. Or consistently add wood to the fire, and that fire is going to continue to grow for you. And occasionally you need to throw some lighter fluid on it. And lighter fluid in our business world could be new creative ideas, marketing, new prospects, hiring a new team member, et cetera. So again, my brother's saying, Frank, how on earth does this fire work with our business? And I kind of deconstructed my business. I said, okay, so let's take my business, for example. I have to decide that I am in the business of helping people. Okay, next step, I got to prepare myself. So now I need to find names of people I could call and introduce myself to. Step 3, execute. I've got to get the courage to pick up the phone and make the phone calls to these people. And that's not always easy, right? There's rejection on the other end of the line sometimes. There's objections. There's people that say they'll do something and then they choose not to. And then lastly is this idea of maintaining or growing. So that's really where I want to spend most of our time today, is in this fourth bullet, which is maintain or grow, right? There's that old saying, you're either green and growing or ripe and rotten. And in our business, that comes down to prospecting. And I believe probably for everybody on this call here, this is about the same thing in your business as well. It's about making your existing clients happy and continuously meeting new prospective clients. So here are the 5 things I want to walk through today. First is vision. Second is a philosophy of mine, which is interested rather than interesting. Teamwork, education, and persistency. And I grew up with a lot of storytelling in my house, so I'm going to do this through some storytelling over the next 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to get a little personal. So years ago, almost 10 years ago now, I lost 100 pounds. And I did that through working with a weight loss coach, a lot of focus, a lot of dedication, et cetera. And one of the things that was most motivating to me during this time was one of my colleagues was talking to me once, and he was trying to make an analogy about something being impossible. And he said, listen, this is like Frank running a marathon one day. Guys like this just don't run marathons. It's just never going to happen. And that was always in the back of my mind as I lost the weight. So when I lost the weight, I said to myself, well, my journey can't be over yet. I'm going to go run a marathon. And I signed up for the New York City Marathon in 2012. And I was fully trained, ready to go. I was running with a team. And for those of you that were in this area almost 10 years ago now, if you remember what happened in the fall of 2012, Hurricane Sandy ripped through parts of the Northeast. And I was watching the news one evening, and the commissioner of the New York City Roadrunners Association came on and said, you know, it is with great regret that we are going to be canceling the New York City Marathon. And at that moment, I had a decision to make. And the decision was, okay, I tried, right? I can't control what I can't control. I tried my best. I trained. At least I could always say I trained for a marathon. Or the second option was find a way to win. And because my vision and because my goal was so important to me, it allowed me to continue and to persevere. So I got on the computer that night, and really through serendipity, as I'm in Bucks County today, I found one marathon that still had an entry available, and that was the Bucks County Marathon, right along the Delaware-Raritan Canal. And a week later, there I was running that marathon, 13.1 miles out, 13.1 miles out, 13.1 miles back in, 26.2 miles. And I had 5 hours to think about what occurred over the last 5 months. And for me, it was all around vision. And I went back to my earlier notes of training. And every day when I would come back from a training or from a long run, I'd write how I felt, and I would write why I was doing it. Because if you're anything like me, you probably had a million reasons. I mean, I had a million reasons to quit during that time, right? It was cold, my feet hurt, I wanted to spend more time at home, I was sore. Why was I really doing this? But because I had a vision, that was most important. So the first thing I would share with this group today, regardless of the business you're in, is do you have a written vision that is SMART? And SMART as an acronym, it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Right? So if you've never made $1 million, if you said, I want to make $1 million by next week, that's pretty specific. It may not be reasonable. So for each and every one of us, I would encourage us to have very clear written goals that are SMART. And then second, goals that you could then share with others, whether that's sharing it with a family member, a spouse, a colleague. And then lastly, making sure you're reading that vision on a daily basis. Sometimes I'll ask my advisors to read their vision. And they'll say things to me like, oh, hold on one second. I got to go on my computer and find it. And 5 minutes later, they finally find it in a buried, folder. That tells me they're not reading it. They wrote it once for ceremony, to be ceremonial. They wrote it once, they never looked at it again. So good vision needs to be in front of you every single day. So for me, that's in my closet. When I get my suit on and my tie and my watch, I'm reading my vision. I know some people that keep it in their bathroom. So when they're brushing their teeth, they have something to read. So that's my first lesson that has been helpful to me in 13 years is anytime I'm asking myself why I'm doing this, I need to have a greater purpose. I need to have a greater vision. And my vision has changed a million times in 13 years, right? In the beginning, it was making my family proud. My dad immigrated here from Italy. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to make my family proud. Then I became a dad or a husband and then a dad, and it was about supporting my family. So there's been so many reasons for vision. Over the probably start with maybe a little bit of a background on this. How often are you in a conversation with somebody and they one-up you, right? You go, hey, you know what? Business is great. And they go, oh, that's really good to hear. Our business is really great too. People spend more time, and I'll bring it to the slide, wanting to be interesting rather than interested. If you were a fly on a wall and you listen to most conversation, most people are constantly one-upping and being alpha. It's natural. So my phrase that I say to my advisors all the time is spend time being interested rather than interesting. And it has been one of the greatest successes for me as someone who fact finds for a living, right? So if I was talking to Helen and Helen said, I run a really great travel agency, rather than saying, oh, that's awesome. I went to Florida last year with my family. We loved it. I would say, what got you into the business, Helen? She's going to tell me what got her in the business. I'm going to say, that's great. What's been your passion for? She can tell me your passion. What are you finding to be the trends today with COVID and people traveling less? How's that affected your business? And all of a sudden what happens is 45 minutes later, Helen shared everything with me. And what I find is, tends to say to herself, nobody's asked me those questions in a while. Because as all of us, when I look at this list here as business owners or people in sales, it's typically our job to ask people questions, and very rarely are people asking us questions. This is not easy to do. Most conversation is a ping pong conversation. So for me, what I'm constantly asking myself is after somebody tells me something, I'm going to mirror and ask them, a follow-up question. And if you're looking for an easy strategy to do this, it's called mirroring, and it's just repeating the last part of what they said. So if Helen said to me, I own a travel, and Helen is a travel agency. Yeah. If Helen said to me, I own a travel agency, I would go, a travel agency. And her response is unlikely going to be, yeah. It's going to be, yeah, travel agency. My husband and I own it together. It's been a really fun business. Oh, you and your husband. Yeah, we're in partnership together. Right. So it's a phrase called mirroring. So if you're not sure what exciting, enthusiastic question to ask them in response, just ask the last part of their question. And I find this to be a technique that helps a lot of our younger advisors, particularly because oftentimes we think the way in which we add value to a new client or a new customer is by telling them everything we know, making sure that they think we're really smart and we're really knowledgeable. And you know what? That doesn't matter that much because information is more accessible today than it's ever been. I'm not an expert on anything outside of my business, but I could go to Google and I could learn a lot in the next 20 minutes on something. So I think relationship is more important than anything today. And there's an old expression, right? People don't care what you know until they know that you care. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. So I find number 2 here is being interested rather than interesting has been a really helpful exercise for me to express how much I care to others. Okay, third bullet point. You know the old expression, it takes a village. So I'm so fortunate. I have 5 amazing people on my team here at my firm that both support my personal practice as a financial advisor and support our office, our firm. And I believe in teamwork makes the dream work. And here's just 10 quick tips. If you work with it, if you have a team, whether you are employing those people or they're people that you work closely with, here's 10 things that I'm going to rattle through really quickly that have been very helpful to me. One is clear expectations. So many times I have found that when things go wrong, it was an error on my communication, right? So if I said, hey, can you make sure, Amanda, that you get this report done? She says, yeah, great. I didn't tell her by when. I didn't tell her in what format. I didn't tell her how. That was on me. So clear communication has been really helpful for me and my team members. Focusing on we rather than I. So if I'm writing an email to a client and I'm copying my team member on there, the whole email is plural, right? So, you know, hey, Dick, it's so great to meet with you. My team and I are really excited to meet with you. We look forward to the opportunity to helping you and your family in your financial planning. It is important that the team knows they're part of the bigger picture. Empower versus delegate. Delegation was something many of us probably learned about early in our careers. It's delegate, give things away. And what I've come to learn is rather than just delegate, empower. And instead, I ask questions today to my team, which is, what would you do if you were me in this case? Or how do you think we should respond to this email? And what I've come to learn from that is I get great advice from my team because they look at it from a different perspective sometimes, or I have a blind spot. 3 very magical words. I appreciate you. You know, everybody has different love languages, but I do think appreciation is right up there from almost everybody. And sometimes I'll just say to my team, and it always needs to be genuine, of course, is I'll just say, hey, I just want you to know I saw what you did. I saw that email and I really appreciate you. Not I appreciate what you did, I appreciate you. Disregard number 5, actually, that's specific to our business, but actually I'll tell you what that means. Forum is an achievement at Northwestern Mutual. So one of the things my team and I do once a week is we call it a Forum 5. We have a 5-minute meeting to talk about the biggest priorities for the week. Rather than an email, it's a quick 5-minute phone call. Number 6, I think your team members need to be your number 1 A+ relationship. If you have clients that you value, it's A+, you better make sure your team members are feeling the same love. Trust your team members, and trust is earned in drips and it's lost in buckets, right? So it's going to take time to earn trust from team members, but find ways to have the opportunities to do this, whether it's through team building, whether it's through you showing up on time, saying doing what you say you would do. 8 is education. You know, I think each of the people we work with need development opportunities. And I recognize some people on the call are a 1-person band, and that's awesome. So you're the team member here, right? What are you doing to further your own personal development? 9, we call these study groups. So I have colleagues in my company and in the industry that I meet with on a regular basis to kind of share ideas. And I would tell you, if you have that same opportunity, I would do that for your colleagues as well. So if you have an administrative assistant, maybe pair them up with another administrative assistant from another company and see if there could be some collaboration. And then lastly, a vision. I would encourage you to have a vision, but to also make sure that team members have a vision. I have learned so much about the people on my team over the years by understanding their vision. I remember one time, this didn't work out great for me, but the most importantly, it was right for her. I was asked one of my colleagues to put a vision together, and in her vision, she said she wanted to go back to school to be a dental hygienist. And we really dug into that, and it was a passion of hers. So we decided she was going to work with me for about another 6 months to save up money and go pursue her passion. Didn't work out for me, but it was the right thing for her. And I think without that vision, she may not have seen that. So again, teamwork makes the dream work. Next thing I'll go to, another one of my favorite quotes: the teacher appears when the student is ready. And when I started coming out to Bucks County, my drive to the office went from a 10-minute drive to a 35-minute drive. And I get in pretty early. So the beginning of this, I was listening to a lot of music. And then it hit me. I said, I've got 35 minutes. Why wouldn't I educate myself and get better? So these are some of my favorite teachers. Eric Thomas, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Walter Bond. These are amazing motivational speakers. YouTube has been a source of so much info. I mean, you just type in motivation or inspiration or sales ideas, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden I have 35 minutes of amazing content every morning. So it is so easy for us to get reactive in our careers and to get lost in our emails that we sometimes forget to educate ourselves. So this has been one of the best ways for my continued growth. I would certainly find programs that are specific to you. Like Michelle with Dale Carnegie, right, has amazing content. Michelle and I have talked before. So I would find opportunities where you could personally and professionally develop. But these are some that you could do easy on the drive in. I recently, about a year ago, subscribed to something called Masterclass. I think it cost me $150 a year, and you get 10 episodes with people that are masters in their craft. And what's been fun about it is I'm listening to people who are in industries completely different than mine: astronauts, gardeners, ballerinas. But guess what? They're the best in what they do, and there's transferable skills that are in there. So this one falls under education, right? The teacher appears when the student is ready. If you're ready for more knowledge and more info, this is the time to do it. Last thing I would say on this topic is Audible. I subscribe to Audible. I think it's $15 a month, and I'm constantly listening to books. Sometimes in between meetings, I'll just finish a chapter. Sometimes I'll do it kind of mindlessly while I'm writing some emails. And then the last thing is I'm just going to share a story with you around perseverance. So I played college football at Ursinus College, which is a liberal arts school in Southeast PA, right in Collegeville. And what you're seeing here on the screen is a picture my brother gave me because I shared the story with him and he knew it was important to me. So the bottom field is our practice field, and the top field that you could barely see was the game day field. So first practice, freshman year, you're nervous, you put your helmet on, your shoulder pads, and you walk down this flight of steps. And then all of a sudden the coaches and the sophomores, juniors, seniors start yelling at you, get off the steps, what are you doing? And you think a bomb went off, like you just jump off the side of those steps and you don't know why. And they don't say a word. So for your whole first practice, you're wondering what you did wrong. At the end of the first practice, the coach gets all the athletes together and says, listen, those steps are the easy way out. If you want the easy way out, walk up those steps, drop your helmet and shoulder pads off in the locker room, and don't come back tomorrow. But from now on, every single day, you are going to walk up and down that hill on the way to practice. And you could see the wear and tear of that hill there. And my brother took this picture in May, well after the season. He gave this to me as a graduation gift. So you can imagine what it looks like in season. But on the last day of your senior year, all the seniors line up at the bottom of that kind of concrete square. The coach goes to the very top, and all the underclassmen line the sides of the steps, and they introduce you one by one. Number 68 from Lawrence, New Jersey, Frank DiMeglio. And for your first and only time, I had the chance to walk up those steps. I get the chills sharing this story, 10 plus years later. But I share this because I think for all of us, we need to remember what our gold medal experiences have been like. We need to know in our own business, what does it look like to walk across the stage metaphorically to be recognized? Is it excellent service? Is it compensation? Is it getting a referral? Like, what does the ultimate win look like for you? And if you have clarity on that, you could persevere through all the other stuff, in my opinion. Because what this last year, I think, has shown all of us is you have to find a way to win, and you have to find a way to persevere through the toughest times. And I would imagine each one of you have had have been forced to change some level of your business. And if you didn't have those steps, the top of the steps to think about for 4 years, you might quit on yourself. So you got to find something that deeply connects you to a greater purpose and a greater why. And for me, in college, it was making sure I got to the top of those steps one day. So I would just encourage everybody, you know, what is at the top of your steps, and what is it that you want to aim for? So as promised, I wanted to go 20 to 25 minutes so we could leave plenty of time for Q&A, collaboration, etc. So that was my formal remarks, and I'm happy to jump in and answer any questions that you think may be helpful.
I just have to say that was really a great presentation.
Oh,
really inspiring. I have to absorb it, but I really appreciate it.
Thanks. It was truly my pleasure. It's fun to share some things that have helped me over the years.
Maybe one question would be, what do you do when you lose that motivation or inspiration, or you have those moments where you're not feeling inspired?
Yeah, great question. And if we're all being honest with ourselves, we have these often, right? We kind of have to constantly find new inspiration. So my saying here around the office that some people probably get sick of is, you know, what do you need to do to recalibrate? That's my saying. What do you need to do to recalibrate? And I find it's different for everybody. For me, I'll tell you what it is. I have a couple things. One is I reread my vision. And a really good vision should be exciting and compelling, but should also be really scary. So if I find that both of those things aren't happening, I'll rewrite and edit my vision. It would be crazy to think you write it once and it's good to go. The second thing is I usually will kind of take inventory of what my daily routine looks like. Usually when I'm losing some level of inspiration, I find that, you know, I'm not getting up early and exercising, or maybe my diet's not where it should be, or I'm not spending the right time with my friends or family. So just kind of study what's my day-to-day look like. 3, I usually realize for me it's some level of some burnout. So usually taking a day to myself or a half day to myself is helpful. And the last one, and it sounds really cheesy, I'm a sucker for any Rocky movie, particularly if I watch Rocky 2, I'm re-inspired. So you got to find out what works well for you. I have a friend who goes to the zoo a couple times a year. And he's like, when I'm feeling down and like unmotivated, I walk through the zoo and it makes me feel better. So we got to find what works for you. Yeah, great question. Thanks, Amanda.
I have a question on your vision changing. You said you change your vision every now and then or regularly. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so I always write it at the end of every year. And our fiscal year at Northwestern Mutual ends around December 20th or December 21st. So I take a half day out of the office, just me. And there's a cigar place in Princeton, New Jersey that I'll usually go to. So it's quiet, and I'll read my vision from the previous year. I'll highlight what went well. I'll highlight the things that maybe were not very realistic, and I'll start to edit in this case, right, for the next year. So in 2020, I was doing that for 2021. So most times I'm not editing throughout the year, but there's certainly been a few years where I'm reading my vision and I'm not feeling inspired and I'm not feeling challenged by it, and I'll rewrite it. And I'll usually rewrite it by doing a couple things. The first is I restate what I call I am statements. So at the very top of my vision, there's a couple I ams. I am a leader. I am a great husband. I'm a great husband, father, son, and brother. I am 200 pounds. I am a live summit leader. That's something with our firm. So there's these quick I am statements, right? It reminds me of what I want to be personally and professionally. So I'll start with those. If I'm not aligned with those I am statements anymore, that needs to change first and foremost. And then I'll go through my vision, and oftentimes there needs to be something logistically that needs to be changed, right? If my team and I are really far off a goal and it's not going to happen, then I find it's a big disappointment to read that vision every single day. So back to that acronym SMART, I want to keep my vision realistic at all times. Right? If our goal is to bring in a certain amount of assets every year and we're in the 10th month and it's not going to happen, then I'd rather make the most of those next 2 months and make my vision attainable. So I'm not suggesting back off of your goals, but if you realize they're no longer realistic or attainable, make them attainable so you get excited about them. So that's been helpful to me to kind of recalibrate my vision throughout the year. I tried something else once. I recorded my vision on audio on my phone, and I would listen to it rather than read it. And that was pretty helpful as well that year. You know, it just kind of changed the pace for me. And the next year I went back to reading it because I needed the visual. I needed that vision hung up in my closet. So that was helpful for me. Anything I could...
Hey, Frank.
Yeah.
Sorry. I interrupted you there, Frank. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So I want to second what Amanda said, because I think that this was very useful, and I've learned quite. I've got a lot of notes that I've made down here, so thank you for this.
My pleasure.
But I wanted to go back to one of the points you said right at the beginning about being interested rather than interesting. So, because I thought that you made some very good comments, but I got a little confused as what was interested and what was interesting when you're talking to people. You've obviously been doing this for a long time. So how do you practice doing that? I know you said mirror people, but looking for tips from you.
So it's a daily work in progress. And what I have found is a couple things I do to work on this. One is if I find I'm talking more than the other person, I'll stop and I'll make sure that every single thing that comes out of my mouth next is a question. So that's kind of the first trigger is, am I saying statements or am I saying questions? That's the first one for me. The second thing is I'll look at body language. So if I see their arms are crossed or they're kind of looking away, that means that I'm telling a story that I probably think is interesting and it's not very interesting to them. But almost just the way we're kind of wired, we all love talking to each other. I promise you, if you asked me right now about my 3 daughters, I would talk to you with a smile on my face for an hour about all of them, right? We love talking about the things that are important to us. So making sure that I'm saying questions rather than statements and looking for body language has been really helpful. But honestly, Helen, if I don't know your industry, sometimes it is tough for me to ask questions. So instead, I'll utilize that art of mirroring. So if you said something to me like, oh, we just planned a really wonderful trip for a family to Aruba, I would say, now here's what 9 out of 10 people would say. Oh my God, Aruba is amazing. You know, I went there on my honeymoon. We had so much fun. Instead, I'll say this, Aruba. And you'll go, oh yeah, it's an amazing island. You would love it, Frank. You've got to check it out. It's so cool. Right. And so if I don't know anything about Aruba, I'm going to say Aruba or tell me more about Aruba. So there's some fun ways to do that.
That's
so
cool.
Hopefully
Thanks,
that
Frank.
helps.
Yeah, that helped a lot. I'm going to try and put that into practice. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, we certainly do that to stay interested, but here's the biggest thing that helps. We learn so much about people through that, right? So let's say, Helen, you were talking with me and you decided you were going to share with me all the places that you thought were great. Well, maybe none of those places are important to me. But if you asked all the right questions, you'll quickly find that out. My best example of this is I was leasing a car once. And I walked in and the guy said to me, you're going to love this one. Let me tell you why. And he walked me through why he thought I would love it. I don't know the difference between a Hemi and an engine and a horsepower. Like, I don't know anything that happens underneath a car, underneath the hood. But here's why I went in. We just learned we were expecting our second child. And I needed more space in a car and I needed a safe car, right? So if that person started by saying, what brings you in today? Oh, I'm looking for a car. Oh, what type of car? Something for my family. Family? Tell me a little bit about that. Yeah, we've got a child and a second on the way. A second? Yeah, my wife's doing well. We're expecting in June. Wow, okay. So what's important to you? Right now, it wasn't about this entire showroom of cars. Now this person was able to, if they did that correctly, could have quickly gotten to what was important to me, narrowed it down, and maybe there was 3 or 4 cars, and I would have felt appreciated. But instead, this person had, what's that old saying, right? If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So this person was just interested in selling me a specific car, which was fine, but it could have been such a different situation if you just asked me the right questions. And we're all guilty of it. We all have agendas, right? We all have things that are important to us. So I would just encourage, more questions, less statements, read body language, and when in doubt, mirror.
Frank, I have a question.
It helps.
I have a question. So let's say you're about to pick up the phone to call a CEO of a mid-sized company, $50 million annual revenue. What do you do to prepare? And what are some of the most important things to do, when you get that person on the phone?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So for me, I want to have every opportunity. I don't know if I just froze there. Sorry. For me, I want to have every opportunity to meet somebody through a referral. I feel that when I call somebody, the moment I say, hey, Amanda, this is Frank DiMeglio, the proverbial wall goes up. She doesn't know me and she wants that. She's got to find a way to get off the call. But when I say, hopefully my name sounds familiar, I was introduced to you recently by Denise, the wall goes down. Oh, I like Denise. I know Denise. I trust Denise. I'll talk to Frank. So I think the first thing I would tell you there is before I make that call to a really big prospect, I want to find every way possible to have some connection, whether that means I know somebody that knows them or I've been a consumer of their company in the past. So I want to be, first off, prepared with that. The second thing is I want to call at what I think will be the best time of the day. So I use this as an example. My dad's in the food business. And if somebody who really wanted his business called between 11 and 2, they're going to get the worst part of him, right? That's rush hour. He's preparing for the day. So if I'm going to call a really big CEO, I'm going to call her first thing in the morning on the office line before the gatekeeper's there, right? So I'm going to probably call at 7:15, 7:30 in the morning before her day is crazy, before she's got a million emails to follow up on. And I want to do that because I want to give myself the best opportunity to win. So those are two things before we even make the call. Do I have some level of connection to this person? And am I calling at the right time? But typically when I make that phone call, I would say, hey, Michelle, this is Frank DiMeglio. Hope you're doing well. My name may or may not sound familiar, but you and I have a couple mutual connections in the Bucks County Central Chamber, the Central Bucks County Chamber. And I was calling today to introduce myself to you. I was hoping to see if you had maybe 30 minutes to an hour one day next week where I could share with you a little bit about the work that I do. Now, I'm going to pause my language. I want to get ahead of the objection, particularly if I think they're going to have one. So I would then say, so, Amanda nor I assume that you would need any of my services. Matter of fact, you're probably all set. But Amanda had some really great things to say about you. Or, the chamber's been really great for me, as I'm sure it has been for you. So I thought it'd be great for the two of us to at least connect. And the reason I find that helpful is it is our job naturally to give objections, right? Very rarely people going, yeah, sure, perfect timing. I need those services. Why don't you come on by? And I think my best opportunity to meet with her in this case is based upon relationship and rapport. So if there's not a referral, I'm going to find some type of connection. If it's a cold call and it has to be a cold call, my goal is to have brevity and to be as quick as possible with them and to get ahead of that objection. And in that case, the objection might be, hey, I'm sure you get these calls all day long. I'm sure you get tons of cold calls, and I do as well. So I want to be really thoughtful of your time. I saw your name on LinkedIn and you were somebody that I was really interested in learning a little bit more about. So I was hoping I could stop by one day next week, learn a little bit more about you, your business, and see if there's any ways that I could be helpful. So the difference here is this is not about, notice I didn't say, I'd love to stop by and share with you the work that we do and how we help people. Instead, I said, I'd love to stop by and learn a little bit more about you and see if there's any ways that I could be helpful. Because my findings are, the CEO that you referenced, people are always coming to them for something. People always want a little bit of them. And if I'm now saying, I'd love to just learn a little bit more about you, they might actually, that might be a door opener. They might go, yeah, no one ever asks about me. Yeah, come on by. So hopefully those couple of those.
Yeah, I think that's good. And it's a good point for LinkedIn invites as well. I just got one yesterday, hey, let's LinkedIn so you can learn more about what I do. Clearly a selling LinkedIn connection. And of course I didn't connect.
Yeah. Yeah. I find in those cases, unless the stars are aligned, like you know, if I was looking to hire a business coach and someone wrote to me and said, I'd love to share with you how I help people, I'm like, oh, good timing. I need a coach. But I think if there's not a referral, it's about, I want to learn more about you. And then I'll add one more thing. Snail mail never happens anymore. And one of the things that I'll do is if there's a prospect I'm really, really excited about, I'll write a handwritten letter to them. I'll send it on a Monday and I'll call them on Thursday or Friday. Hey, Denise, this is Frank DiMeglio. Hopefully my name sounds familiar. Actually, I sent you a letter earlier this week. And they're going to go, yeah, I wonder who sent me that letter. I said, yeah, I was hoping it got to you by now. I just wanted to follow up from the letter. I'd love to just see if there was some time next week. We could schedule a call or a time that I could stop on by and introduce myself. I think most people who are in business recognize creativity and would probably say to that, okay, you earned it. You earned it. Well done. Let's meet. I had a client who one time, or a colleague who one time told me, this was back when like people would put birth announcements in the newspaper, and he cut out a newspaper clipping of a family who just had a baby. Meglio, did little Johnny receive his first tax-free dollar? That was you. What's this all about? Oh, well, you know, I saw in the paper that one of the local families had a baby, and you know, for me and my business, helping families save money for their kids is really important. So I thought I'd send $1, and congratulations to you and Johnny. And anyway, I'd love to share with you a little bit more about how I help people. It sounds a little cheesy and corny, but I do find that sometimes we need to be creative and different to get that meeting.
Jeff asked a question that I thought was a really great question through the chat. He asked, how do you ask for a referral? Do you have any tips on that, Frank?
Yeah, great question. So I would tell you here, almost all the business we do is referral based. And I have a couple different steps to it. So I don't think we could earn a referral. I don't think we could get a referral until we earn it. So my belief is the first step in prospecting is getting the affirmative. So if I was meeting with, I'm just looking at the screen here, Michelle pops up. If I was meeting with Michelle, at the end of our conversation, I would say, Michelle, was this a helpful call today? Or has this time together been helpful? Now, if she says yes, I'm doubling down. And I'm going to go, great. Could you help me understand what was helpful? And I'm not looking for a pat on the back, but it's really important to me that when I'm meeting with people that I'm adding value. So that's step one, affirmative. Step two is feed a name. So now if I said to Michelle, so happy to hear this has been a helpful use of our time. You know, I ask for two reasons. One is I want to make sure this is helpful. Two is most people aren't thinking about financial planning as often as they should. And they get busy in their day-to-day life. And earlier in our conversation, you mentioned your sister. And she seems like somebody that would probably enjoy a conversation. She has a young family and she's in business. I'd love to reach out and introduce myself to her. Can you tell me a little bit about your sister? Feeding a name, in my opinion, is so important because what most people do for step two instead is what I call the kiss of death. And they say this. So Michelle, is there anybody in your world that you think would benefit from a conversation with me? And everybody says, oh, you know what? Nobody that comes to mind, but I'll give it some thought. And if there's anybody, I'll make sure I pass them along your way. They usually don't, except for Michelle, by the way. Michelle actually recently followed up on a referral conversation we had and sent me somebody. So Michelle, you're awesome. But that's, in my opinion, step one and step two are critical. So how do you feed a name? It's so easy today. We have access to everything, right? So if Helen was meeting with me, and Laura and I come back from vacation and Helen says, hey, I wanted to hop on a call for 20 minutes and learn about your vacation. How was it? How was Aruba? It was great. It was awesome. And she would then say to me, so was our experience helpful? Like, do you feel like Aruba would have been the same without this? Oh, no, this was great. You made our life easy. Perfect. You know, Frank, I know you work at Northwestern Mutual, and I think there's probably 20 to 30 people at your firm. I've really enjoyed our time together. So I actually went on the company website, and there's 5 or 6 other people on this website that remind me a lot of you. People that look to be in their mid-30s, probably have a young family, probably want to get out of the cold for a bit. And anyway, I did a little market research, and I found a couple people here. And what do you think about me reaching out to Felix and to Jay and to Michael? And by the way, and this is my opinion, nothing that Helen did in that example was creepy to me. That's public information. She could go on my company website. She could go on LinkedIn. She could go on anything she wants. But if Helen were to say, who else do you think would enjoy a conversation? I'm going to not think of anybody unless somebody recently told me they want to go on vacation. But if Helen said, I went on your website and there was 5 or 6 other people that reminded me of you, and I'd love to just introduce my services to them. Would you be open to me calling Jay and Felix and Michael? I don't have really good reason to say no to that. And I'm like, well, sure. I don't know if they want to go on vacation, but yeah, Helen, you've been great. Introduce yourself. So that, for me, those first 2 steps, feed a name, get the affirmative, feed a name are so important. Step 3 is, we call it feed a category, right? So I work with a lot of doctors. So I would say, so Michael, who do you know? Michael, could you tell me a little bit about some physicians you know well in the area? Step 4, I usually say, is who else? So when you think of somebody like Denise, who else comes to mind? Diversity and inclusion is really important to me. So when I meet with a male, I'll say, hey, Michael, who's the female version of you? Right? People usually think about how they think of themselves. They then think of somebody else that kind of reflects them in the female version. So anyway, just asking some fun, creative questions. But stay clear of the kiss of death, right? So who do you know that you think would want to have a meeting with me? I don't know, Helen, but if I ever meet anybody that says they want to go on vacation, I'm going to call you. And look, I'm busy enough thinking about my business. I'm unlikely going to be out there looking and searching for people for Helen as much as I want to. So instead of Helen gives me the names, she just made both of our lives a whole lot easier. So I hope that helps there. And I use the phrase, I'll say, so Helen, I did some online market research. And then I'll say, in other words, I went on LinkedIn and I saw you and I have a couple mutual connections, or you have some second connections that I'd love to meet. I work with a lot of doctors. Very easy. Go on the hospital website or the pediatric website, and you can see all the doctors there, right? So they're not going to go, how did you get these names? I'll go, went on your website, know where you work. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. I see some messages.
Yeah. We're kind of closing in on the time. So if you want to just give a parting thought, Frank, I think we'll kind of close up shop for today, and thank everyone for coming, and really thank you, Frank, for your great information. And it was really refreshing, I have to say.
Oh, thanks.
And I'll also give a shout out to BB&T, who sponsors this series, now Truist, and thank them. And that's why we can offer it free for chamber members.
That's awesome. I would just tell you it was a pleasure to be here today. Did my screen freeze again?
Not for us. It might be frozen for you, but it's working for us.
I was just gonna say it was really a pleasure to be here today. And if I could give you any parting words or advice, it would be stay as highly connected to your vision as possible. The vision is your guardrails on the road, and it's easy to swerve once in a while. You need to keep things, have things to keep you in your lane. And then the last thing I would tell you is don't limit your thinking. Continue to think big. Look at what others are doing in your industry, and find those people. Find out what works well for them, and continue to learn and continue to grow. So I am sincerely appreciative of the time today. Professionally speaking, if I could ever be helpful to anybody, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd love to have a conversation. So thanks for the time today. All right, see everybody.
Thank you. It was
Thanks.
awesome.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure.